If you haven't seen the exhibition layout Wimborne on the exhibition circuit, you are in for a very pleasant surprise. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie. I first spotted the Wimborne exhibition layout on the circuit in Frome a couple of years ago, and then last year once again in the Bath and West Showground. I can't deny I was thoroughly impressed with it. It really is a beautiful construction and a very enthusiastic team. I had a word with its leader, a guy called Gordon Edgar, and he asked me if I'd like to come down on a club day and film it. Now, I haven't carried out an aggressive edit on this video because there is so much of it to see and great explanations behind its evolution and its intricacies. It really is a wonderful piece of engineering, so get yourself a coffee, sit back and enjoy it, and I'll see you again at the end.
Hello and welcome to Wimborne Railway Society's model of Wimborne Station as it was in the early 50s and early 60s. My name is Gordon Edgar and I do my best to try and lead the 00 modelling group, and this is our product. The model was started way back in the late 70s, just after the station was closed, and this is its third incarnation and the only one that's actually made it to exhibition status. So what you're seeing here is a model of Wimborne from the infamous Lye Road Bridge, and we'll have a look at Lye Road Bridge later and I'll explain why it's infamous, all the way through the station to the Stour Viaduct. The model itself is analogue and we have 4 control stations. The model of Wimborne is really a railway for all reasons. It is both continuous run and it is shunting. We have the up and down main line, which are the continuous run, and we have the up yard, which is a shunting element, and the down yard, which is also a shunting element. There are 4 control points, 1 each for the 2 continuous runs, 1 for the up yard and 1 for the down yard. There's also the signalman who has the control panel. The railway works by a form of cab control, and the signalman can control which controller operates which bit of the railway. He also has access to the signals and the points. The footprint of the model is some 20 feet by 12 feet. The baseboards are a bit of a hybrid. The 4 corner boards are of a lightweight construction and they date from the second incarnation of the model. Unfortunately, being lightweight, they have caused us a lot of problems, and getting the appropriate rigidity into them now means that they are not very lightweight. The centre board here where the station is, that is a more conventional construction using 12mm ply and is as solid as a rock. Also, the centre board of the storage yard is the same construction and is likewise solid. In the storage yard there are 4 roads in each direction, and each road is split into 3 sections. So that means we can have a whole variety of train lengths, yet we can also maintain independent operation. So in each road we could have 3 short trains, or we could have 1 longish train and a short train, or we can have 2 trains of medium length. By medium length we're talking equivalent to 5 coaches, or we can have 1 full length train. The operators of the continuous run control the movement through the storage yards. We have a little rule that says a train will only go round once and not reappear again until all the other trains have moved. In addition to create variety in the running, we have a number of cassettes that will let us rotate the trains and change over things to create variety here on the front. Because we see the whole purpose of this railway, yes, it is a model, it is a historical piece, it models the station as it was, but when we're at exhibition, we're there to provide entertainment. So using our 4 control places, we can guarantee to have at least 1 train moving all the time, 2 trains moving a lot of the time, 3 trains moving some of the time, and sometimes we have that golden moment when 4 trains are all moving at once. So we'd never have people standing in front of us wondering when the next train is due to arrive. Here we are, ready for an operating session on Wimborne. On the down main, we have Colin working as controller and signalman. We have Clive. Clive tries to keep us all in order. Working the up main, we have Steve. Working the down yard, we have Derek. And working the up yard, we have Craig. The up and down main lines run on a sequence. Remember I said that the storage roads are split into 3 sections. So each road is holding more than 1 train. We like to rotate the trains. A train will never run round more than once before it's replaced by another train. So, first of all, Colin will send off the first train and Steve will send off his first train. While the train is moving round, they will move the other trains up in the yard so that there's a new train in the first position. The train will run round and go to the back of its road. The freight works on a different system, waybills. On one side of the waybill is the arriving train, and this tells the yard operator which wagons to expect. In the down yard, the arriving side also tells the yard operator where to place wagons. There are 5 places in the down yard where wagons are located, so that they can be processed, i.e. loaded or unloaded. The reverse side of the waybill gives the train that the yard operator has to make up. And this will give a sequence of wagons moving left to right, so that the left wagon is next to the engine and the right-handmost wagon is next to the guard's van. Just prior to completion of the train, the freight yard operator will tell the controller that he is almost finished completing a train. And the controller will then ensure that the next train is delivered. The track is code 75 rail. The actual running track is SMP. All the points are handmade by Jeff and Don, and they represent the configuration of the track as it was at the end of the running. The points are controlled by Tortoise Point Motors, who have given us valiant service. The whole railway is analog control and split up into various sections. So the up yard here has sections in it so that we can have more than 1 train running in it. The down yard is split into north and south, so we can have trains arriving at the south end and trains still being shunted in the north end. The main line is similarly divided into 2. So this gives us, via the cab control, very, very flexible running. We can bring stock from the up yard across both up and down lines into the down yard, all on one controller. We don't have any of the difficulties that you can have on some analog layouts where you've actually got to swap controllers and you get that jerk in the engine as it moves from one to the other.
Colin is bringing out on the down line a goods train from Salisbury being pulled by a Q1. Remaining under the control of the downyard controller, the Q1 is brought into Wimborne Station where it stops. On stopping, the controller switches the points, so the goods train can be reversed into the down yard north. Here the brake ban is dropped off. So still under control of the downyard controller, Colin, the goods train is now moved into one of the loops. The controller now has the ability here to use one of our uncouplers, which are all cleverly marked by various pieces of scenery, in this case a pigeon on a roof, which enables him to uncouple the Q1, and still under the control of the downline controller, the Q1 can be then run off light engine back to the fiddle yard on the downline. Go. Have you routed it? Clive has now given me control back to Downyard South, which now using this goods pilot, I now need to maneuver it around and break down that train into all the different sidings that is allocated to me on the waybill. So using this goods pilot, I make sure the pilot is running through all the points correctly, up to the head shunt. Then I have access to these points on the panel, and I can now reroute it back into the loop. So my job now is to take this train and break it down. That's been dictated by this waybill, which tells me which truck goes to which siding. As you can see from the waybill, the first van and the first two coal trucks, the first van has to go to position 3D, and the coal trucks have to go to 7J and H. That's the goods shed and the coal stays. And as soon as you look on the layout, you'll see that there is actually already many trucks in those sidings. So I'm required then to not only maneuver the new ones into place, but also I have to do that by getting the old ones out and positioning everything round. So that'll take me about the next hour or so. Once I've done that, then our next task is on the reverse side of this waybill, which is the pool goods freight, which has to go out from this position. So I then have to build up that train in the second loop, and once it's ready, I'll tell the controller and off it'll go. Having shunted the other trucks out of that siding, I'm now clear to move the 16-ton coal wagons to the coal stays for that final position.
All the signals on the railway are functional. The electronics are Merg components and are controlled off the control panel in the centre there. All the signals work. All the signals were constructed by Don and are either an amalgam of kits or completely scratch built. The push-pull is now ready to leave the down platform and continue its journey down into pool. And we'll see first of all the home signal come off, and then the distance signal come off, and the train will then be ready to depart. So off it goes. And once the train has passed the signals, we can see them return to danger. Well, let us now move on to another bit of our railway, and let's talk about uncoupling. You've probably seen already that some uncoupling is done by hand, but we also have a system of uncouplers worked by servo point motors. On this railway, we use the conventional tension lock couplings, although we have standardised all on the Bachmann stroke Hornby narrow couplings. Now you can see here the seagulls. There's a pair of them. Now these seagulls indicate to the operators on the inside where the uncouplers are. If we now look down towards the track, you'll see that the seagulls indicate where the uncoupler is. And so long as the operator gets the gap between the wagons to line up with the seagulls, the wagon will uncouple when the servo is lifted. Well, now let's move over to the next bit of operation, and that is the upyard. The upyard works in a very similar way to the downyard, but is essentially a sorting yard rather than a yard where there are going to be specific spots where the wagons are parked. The upyard still uses the waybill system. So here's the first train arriving waybill, and this is its consist, and it still uses the dispatching train consist on the other side. The upyard today is being worked by my good friend Craig, and in a moment we will see the first train arrive. Well, here comes our first train. This is the local coming down from Evercreech, and Steve will very skillfully stop it so that the gap between the guard's van and the first wagon is between the two seagulls. Then he will press the button, the coupling will rise, and we will uncouple. The train will move forward. The train is now ready to reverse into the upyard. Clive will change the point so the train can cross over, but he will also have to take the control of the upyard off Craig, who's on controller 3, and give it to Steve, who's on controller 1, so the train can move backwards. So here we are, we're all ready, and the train reverses into the upyard. Craig will now uncouple the engine. The engine moves forward back onto the main line. And Clive will now reverse what he's done before. He will put the yard control back over to Craig, who can now shunt the wagons. He has changed the points, and the engine can now reverse and couple onto the brake van and move back to the storage yard. So now Craig can move to breaking up the arriving train and forming up the departing train that's on the other side of the waybill.
Hi, I'm Jim. I was responsible for building the river scene. To achieve the river in its correct position involved chopping out a section of the baseboard to reduce the level. The new level of the baseboard formed the riverbed, and this was made up with plywood overlaid with a grit and small stones, which were overlaid with vegetation. The river surface itself was formed with perspex, 3 mil thick, and this was laid over the upper level of the baseboard to create a gap between the perspex and the riverbed. And this was then in turn, the perspex was in turn coated with 2 layers of brown varnish and the edges and riverbanks were moulded and blended in with the surrounding landscape.
Well, our storage yard has another bit of versatility. Although the storage yard can contain this large number of trains, it still doesn't give us the variety of stock that we would want to move. So we have a cassette system into which we can introduce new trains to the layout or withdraw trains that have been round a few times. So here we have Steve and Clive loading on the cattle train onto the up line, and this train will be ready to go as soon as it's connected, and onto the down line, on the line that's nearest to us, we will load Lady Wimborne Surprise. Now, Lady Wimborne Surprise is one of our joke trains that we send round because we can't take ourselves too seriously. And the story is that Lady Wimborne up at Canford Manor is holding a horse event, and some of her very rich friends have arranged for a train to arrive and bring their horses and grooms with them. The grooms travel with the train, so they travel in the third class carriage there. I don't know how Lady Wimborne's guests get to the railway. Anyway, so there's the trains loaded on, and with a bit of luck, we'll see them both depart. So the pull trip freight has arrived and is ready to reverse into the yard. So Colin will very gently reverse the freight into the yard. Look, there it goes. And as it reverses in, you can see that the push-pull for Brockenhurst has arrived in the station and is busily exchanging passengers ready to depart in a few moments' time. So there's the train reversed in. Reverse up a little bit more till it's clear of the points. So the train will now pull into the loop where the engine will be uncoupled, and it will then couple up onto the departing train, and the departing train will go on its way to Poole. and the train departs for Poole. Here we have an arriving train for an upyard, and we're going to see the wagons swapped over, because here is the departing wagons, and here are the arriving wagons. So the brake van will be uncoupled and the train draw forward, but this time it'll come in through the most northerly junction into the yard. Once again, Clive has given control of the upyard to Steve while he reverses the engine in. The engine will reverse in, and then Craig will uncouple the engine. So there's the engine being uncoupled. So the engine has crossed back onto the main line. Clive has reset the points. The engine now reverses to the southerly crossover and reverses onto the departing wagons, which are in the bay platform there. The engine's coupled up and pulls the departing wagons forward, back onto the main line. Clive resets the point so that the train can reverse back onto its guard's van when Steve stops it. And Craig will now have control of the yard back so that he can start shunting the wagons according to the waybill. So we're all back to normal. Craig can happily shunt the yard. And the up and down lines can continue their running. So the allotments. These allotments did exist. I'm afraid now there's a posh set of flats on top of them. That's the real ones, that is, but here we have the model allotments. Each one of these allotments was modelled by one of our members, so lots of different people had a go at it. They are beautifully modelled, and if you ever see us at a show, which I hope you will, and you come out and look at the vegetable garden very, very carefully and very closely, you will see a slug. The modelling is at that level of detail. Now you can appreciate having models of this quality, that keeping them pristine is a challenge. So the people who modelled the allotments had a brilliant idea. They made them detachable, and for safe storage we can remove the allotments. Okay, this area here depicts the infamous low Lye Road Bridge. Lye Road is the main road out of Wimborne towards Ferndown and Ringwood, and this bridge, being both low and narrow, was the cause of huge traffic jams when the line was opened. And it also, sadly, there were a number of fatalities there, one of them being particularly so when a mum and her baby were crushed by a vehicle as they went underneath the bridge. So it wasn't loved, and I think the residents of Wimborne were quite pleased to see the back of it. This site is now occupied by Old Road Mews, and the actual position of the bridge is marked by a pedestrian crossing. The bungalows that you can see on the other side of the bridge, on the far side of the bridge, exist today, although much altered. One of our challenges was actually estimating the size of those buildings. I don't know how many times we walked past counting bricks. Wonder we didn't get arrested. I draw your attention to the washing line and the children playing in the rear gardens. The buses on Lye Road Bridge are the Route 22. Oh, and look what's crossing the bridge. That's the Salisbury train. The end link houses that you see on the other side of the road also exist today. I draw your attention to the children again playing in the back gardens. There's even one youngster there who's pedalling his pedal car. I'm quite envious of that. I would have quite liked one of those when I was that size. So here we are in the station. The signal box here is a scale model of the real box, and it even has its prototypical lean back, which on the real thing was stopped by the addition of this buttress. As the line declined, this signal box was demoted to ground frame, and as you can see, its height above the running track, it was in fact the highest ground frame in the country. This model is an accurate model of the signal box. It was constructed by Roger Sunderland of Bournemouth West fame. It is an accurate model of the internal workings of the signal box, and the control panel that you saw Clive working earlier is a copy of that panel, although we do use switches instead of levers to control things. Moving down the station buildings, you will see what an absolute hodgepodge of architecture they really are. If you wanted to create an ugly building, you could not have achieved better. Wimborne was in fact the busiest station in Dorset for over 40 years, because Bournemouth, although you wouldn't know it now, was not even worthy of railway connection in the early stages. So the station grew to an incredible size, and to meet the existing traffic, the London South Western Railway kept adding bits on. Until the late 50s, there was even a cafe restaurant in the station building where my hand is, right until that time, which is surprising considering there were only 1 or 2 trains an hour. But in the station car park, you can see some of the reason for the line's decline. 2 tour buses are parked up there, one North Western and the other one Ribble. So in town today, there must be quite a number of people from the Manchester and Liverpool area who've come to sample the delights of the south of England. Over here is the station master's, or the original station master's house, although latterly his accommodation was in the upper floors of the station building. None of this remains today. All of this ground, as you can see, the station was on an elevated platform. All this land was dug out and used for infill for one of the bypasses in the area. The market, Wimborne Market, actually occupied a good bit of the site, with an industrial estate to the far end over here. The market has now disappeared, and disappeared under a retirement village. So the scene has changed out of all recognition. But the station model itself, the area, including the goods yard, is pretty well a scale model of the original. One of the delights of this model is the pleasure that it has given to locals who aren't otherwise interested in railways. We've had the pleasure of showing this model in both the Museum of East Dorset and Allendale House on more than one occasion. And it's to see locals come in and say, "Oh, I recognise that place. Oh, that was my bedroom, and oh, what a pleasure it is to see a reminder of how Wimborne was in the past." It's been quite uplifting. Oh, there's the push-pull crossing the Star Viaduct. Earlier in this video, you heard from Jim and his modelling of the river. What Jim didn't tell you at that time was that he created this model of the Star Bridge. Star Bridge doesn't exist anymore. In fact, it was demolished with indecent haste by British Railways in 1977 when the line closed. Although the curvature on the bridge is not to scale, the actual structure is a pretty well scale model of the rest of the structure. On the inside of the bridge, you'll see the boats from Dream Boats. If you come along to Wimborne to visitors, as well as seeing the beautiful Minster and the model town, you can also have a row on the river on the Dream Boats, because they still are in business. And this is where our model ends. Had we had a little more space, we would have modelled Lady Wimborne's Bridge, which is quite a spectacular structure, constructed to keep the rich landowner happy, full of embellishments, full of decorations. Would have been an absolute nightmare to model, so I'm quite glad we didn't go that far. Now, finally, if you have an exhibition and could make use of quite a fun railway, as I said before, this is a railway for all reasons. It has continuous running, it has shunting. If you'd like us to come along, we'd love to come and join you.
Well, there we have it. Wasn't that just a wonderful piece of railway modelling? If you wish to contact Gordon and his team to bring that layout to perhaps a show that you might be staging, then his contact details are in the Show More tab. The next Chadwick video will come out in 2 weeks' time as usual, but there may be a new video, a stream called Chadwick Swift, which is these short videos that I mentioned before. So you might see one of those next week. Anyway, in the meantime, I'd like to thank the patrons who make it all possible. There's the subscribe button and a video here and here. See you in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.